Today's film is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So another film discussion where we both watch the film. Me and my friend Austin, who's here. This movie is, for those of you who don't know, it is a martial arts movie with a lot of bit of a fantasy element. It sort of follows. So first of all, it was, I think, directed, or it was released in 2000, if I'm correct. Yeah,
Yep.
and it's directed by Ang Lee, and it stars some very prominent Asian actors and actresses. I believe one of them is the main lead. The main male lead was Chun Chun Sun Chun Sun Fat or something.
Chow Yun Fat.
Chow Yun Fat, okay. And then it's also starring. Sorry, my bad. And then stars Michelle Yeoh, and then I don't remember the other two, but there's two more.
The other female
The
actress,
other female actress
Zhang
who's,
Ziyu,
yes.
and her counterpart is Chang Chen.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for the insight. Yeah. So yeah, this it more or less just follows um John Yin, John Ziyi's character, who is the she is it. So when I first watch it, at least, and I can we'll get your opinion, Austin, about this. But when the movie began, I thought it was going to follow more um like Michelle Yeoh's character and Chow Yun Fat's character, like them. I thought
Yeah,
those were going to be like the main,
yeah,
the main characters. But as the movie progressed, it actually I feel like the movie was more about John C. Yee's character. Like she was the
following her.
yeah. It was following her. It went. There was a whole flashback scene, like a whole 10 or 15 minutes of flashback where she was in the desert. And by the way, this is going to be a lot of spoilers. If you haven't watched the movie, I recommend. And if you do want to watch the movie and see for yourself, I recommend not tuning in. But if you don't care about spoilers, why not? We're gonna be spoiling a lot. So, um, yeah, that was actually a fairly interesting take because I always it started with it started with Michelle Yeoh and then Chun Yun Fat, Chow Yun Fat. Like they were like the two main, and then it ended with the other two characters, like Zhang Ziyi and then Chan Chun.
Yeah,
It was like I don't know, I thought it was interesting. It was like, oh, kind of like guides you into a different person's story because it didn't seem, yeah, it seemed like the John Z's character was going to be like more of a, she was more going to be more of like an antagonist, but then she
hmm
ended up more or less becoming like a protagonist in terms of like characterization, or maybe the what's the word for like the duotagonist, where like you're basically like a
yeah,
like
there's
a
person.
the
Yeah,
side, the two protagonists or
equal.
something like that.
Yes, same main villains.
Yeah,
Kind of focuses on their themes and their character arc, and we get to see that, right? And we get to see her grow and see her her themes, and
yeah,
she kind of got equal, I think, um, to all the main cast, right?
uh huh,
Who are going in the film, who
yeah.
are starring.
Um, yes. So Austin, how did you feel about this movie? I talked a lot
Yeah,
with about the intro, but
I really like the movie. It was a its own martial arts film, right? Let's just say with fantasy elements that followed Chow Yun Fat's character, Li Bai, right? Who was I think he's a martial arts master, right? A warrior who finished training, and I don't know. I really like the whole movie. I really like the martial arts. I'm a big fan of martial arts scene, and kung fu fighting and whatnot. So seeing them fight in this style, it's like almost kind of like wushu, kind of like
mm,
kind of kind of like flashy and kind of a lot of technicality. I think it's more kind of like it's more of a performance art, right?
yeah,
And then seeing them fight like that, and there's also a lot of wire fighting. which is unique, and that I think that gave it its fantasy element, right? Because they're doing all these gravity-defying stunts. Um, so I really like that a lot of the action scenes and a lot of the cinematography that went along with the action scenes as well. It kind of showed the scenes, kind of, pulled back and not a lot of cuts. You got to see the whole fight scene in itself, got to enjoy that. And, when you see these two characters fighting, it was intense, and you understood why these two characters were fighting, right? There's always kind of a theme behind, why these two had to be fighting in that moment,
Hmm.
with these opposing ideas, right? So it's kind of like, and there was a lot of fight scenes actually.
There were a lot of fight scenes, and
This,
actually the fight scenes
especially,
were the fight scenes were like the most. I really enjoyed watching the fight scenes. Like this was a
yeah,
very good choreographed, well choreographed.
it was a very good, yeah, very good choreography, and it was very entertaining, and it's almost kind of like akin to a musical, right? Where in a musical, which I enjoy musicals, but in musicals you have a musical number to express feelings and to express to progress the plot along, and I think that the fight scene here had the same kind of effect where each time they're often and they're used to demonstrate the skill, the differences, and the different ideals of all the characters when they're interacting with each other.
Hmm.
So I really like that, and that was I think the main draw, right, of this movie was the action, the fight scenes. Every time it happened, you always drew your eyes to it. It was always interesting, entertaining, and the different moves and the choreography that went along with it. Um, And then the story itself, I also enjoyed, right? It's kind of like a kind of a period drama, right? There's kind of like romantic tension, right? First between Chow Yun Fat's Mubai's character and Michelle Yeoh's Xu Lian, right? So they were, and I'm probably butchering the names, but um, they have this kind of attraction, but they don't act on it because of their ideals to their the
Hmm.
late husband of Michelle Yeoh's character,
Yeah.
and how she they try to respect that memory, and the place and honor and place and duty to them and duty to society and all that. And then the same thing with Zhang Ziyi's character Jen, right? Where she is, trying to break free from her kind of like, constraints, right? And tries to, be her own woman and try to be, have free woman. But she also has her own romantic feelings for the nomad cat, right?
Yeah.
So there's kind of like, also this, romantic drama kind of sprinkled in within this whole film. I kind of like this, seeing the story. It's, this movie focuses a lot on the female characters, right?
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
and whatnot, which is, kind of unique in that sense, right? Where the female characters, are shown fighting competently and shown, they're able to stand on their own, and we got to see them their arcs and how their growth and how they affect the story.
Hmm.
So definitely a new perspective there. And I think also kind of the themes there kind of go within Chinese cultural values, right? A lot of Confucian values of like duty to honor, duty to honor, duty to like family, to to your life, to your to society,
Hmm.
to family, right? I
Hmm.
think I said that already. You have themes like that, and feminism and whatnot, how they're breaking gender roles, and each woman that was portrayed, there's three prominent women, right? There's Michelle Yeoh's character, there's Zhang Ziyi's Jen's character, and then there's the assassin, right? Jade Fox, who
Yep.
um, is kind of her own character, right? And they're all these three prominent women, and I think they kind of get like um, a lot of focus, right? You see that you have Chow Yun Fat's character. He has the main billing, but I don't think a lot went into him, right? A lot of the story goes into the relationship between him and Michelle Yeoh, as well as as you said before, as you stated previously, the main focus was kind of shifted over to Zhang Ji, Jen's character
Yeah.
arc. Um, but I really enjoyed this movie. Just the seeing the different stories and whatnot. The flashback was an interesting kind of takeaway. It's just it dwells its own, into her own character arc. We got to see like her relationship and why she's feeling how she does, and it kind of sets up why she wants to run away or why she tastes this freedom and now she wants to be her own and have her own adventure, which
Hmm.
she gets at the end of the movie. Um, And then the music itself also, I thought was pretty good, especially during the fight scene, right? Music, it's usually it's intense, can sometimes overbeat, overbearing, but here like, I think at least sometimes the music was kind of subtle and added to the tension of the scenes. A lot of times it's just trying to, um, and there's really nothing else with it that goes along. Um, with the fight scenes. At least the two-part fight scenes I noticed. I guess that was the most fun to me, just because of how it added and just so simple.
Mm-hmm.
This is really enjoyable to me. With the fight, as I said, that was prominent, and just with the story, it wasn't too complicated. It was kind of simple. It's kind of like almost like a there's romance, there's kind of revenge kind of sprinkled in, right? Trying to avenge your master, and that kind of also goes with Confucian values, right? Just trying to have your duty to to patriarch and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Definitely a good movie that I enjoy watching. Almost 2 hour movies.
yeah. It was 2 hours.
Never really bored of it when going through it. So what did you think?
Yeah. So I think I mostly like agree with what you say in terms of like I think what really for me what really makes this movie really good is just the I mean I'm not like so I actually haven't watched a lot of like um I'm not as many like action movies as you have us so I'm not like as I wouldn't say I'm as like what's the word like attuned to like what defines like a really good or really bad action movie per se, but I do remember watching a video analysis on from this YouTube channel called Every Frame of Painting, where they basically the person analyzes like what makes a really good action sequence, and he was referring to like a lot of the Jackie Chan movies from the earlier days, like back in the '80s and '90s. Um, and I think I remember him saying what really made these action sequences so prominent or so great was that the way that it was filmed is very different from how it's filmed nowadays with a lot of shortcuts, a lot of jump cuts,
Mm.
and a lot
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
distorting, not like jarring cuts to the point where you don't really know what's going on. And that's done sometimes that's done to sort of mask the fact that like the actors themselves can't really fight, or is to mask the fact that it's the stunt double that's fighting, so they don't want to show the entire body. The
Hmm.
and there was a whole concept of action reaction. So when you're fighting, um, when you there was a point that this analysis video analysis made where like a lot of modern day fight sequences you don't see the action and the reaction in one cut in one shot. It jumps from one to the other. So you have one person throw a punch, and then the next cut will be a jump cut to someone reacting. So it's very jarring and it's not very fluid. But a lot of Jackie Chan films back in the '80s and '90s, when this is from the video analysis, and this is also shown in this movie as well, and Crouching Tiger and Dragon, is that the a lot of the fight sequences, the whole fight is in one shot. Like you see the whole like action reaction, the push and pull of one person and another, and there's not a lot of like cut back and forth to like that will like jar your perception of like a fight. Like you as the viewer can see the full fight, which is and it's very fluid and it's very beautiful, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
which I think makes this movie a lot like the fight sequences make it a lot are very prominent, make it stand out because it's like so different from like what you see nowadays. um, at least in like modern Hollywood and stuff like that. But um, yeah, like that. Um, yeah, when you mentioning the whole like the fight sequences, and then I actually didn't really notice the music per se, but that may have been because it's like that was doing its job because it was very more maybe it was more like atmospheric or something that like in um like sort of like it. increase the like the sort of mood of like what it was going for. Um, like it's not meant to like stand out because I
Right.
actually didn't like. I don't really remember what the music was like to be fair, to be completely honest. So maybe that was like it was doing its job. Um, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but um, I don't know if you thought the music was like very prominent or something that stood out.
No, I think that I only noticed these because I sometimes I pay attention to like the composition, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
with fight scenes, when I'm trying to think of like action scenes when I'm making like videos and whatnot, I always think of like what music would fit, right? So then
Yeah.
when I'm watching fight scenes and other or action scenes in other movie, I'm always like listening, like what's kind of the tempo and beat and what do they use, right? So I think that's why I paid a little bit more attention.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think it kind of, as you said, it kind of added to the movie. And as I said before, sometimes, there's two fight scenes that that were really prominent um, with Jen, who was and Julian. When those two are fighting, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
drums, right? So it's intense, it's low, it's very very simple, but as you said, I think it just adds to the mood, right? It tries not to take it away, but you have these two female figures going at it against each other, and it's not very complex. I agree with you. I don't think it's like anything kind of like at least at those points, at those times in the fight, it wasn't anything that was like so prominent.
Yeah.
Well, I think as you said, I think it just added to the movie. It wasn't there to distract, but also it tried not to have a silent moment, right? Because we wanted to have that kind of tense.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's somewhat interesting that like um I feel like there's been an increase in movies where like their soundtracks aren't they're not very distinct, per se. They don't really stand out. They're kind of just like there to present like more of like enhance the mood or enhance the setting or shot of like what's going on instead of like take it away from it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, that sort of technique is pretty interesting in terms of like whether or not it's like one could argue that it boosts the viewership, or not the viewership, but the quality of what you're seeing, or like one could
Right.
also argue that like maybe it's not needed if the music isn't going to be like stand out. It's if it's not memorable, not distinct, or whatnot. Because there are a lot of like there are a lot of tunes like from older movies that we have very distinct, like Pirates of the Caribbean, like Harry Potter, like Jurassic Park. All those movies have very distinct themes, and I feel like maybe like it feels like at least nowadays there's not as much. Like I can't think of like a modern movie, a very very prominent modern franchise movie that like has a very like distinct tune. Maybe like Avengers. I don't know. Avengers might be like the only one I can think of.
That's like the only movie that I
Really?
would say has like its own prominent theme, especially like at very big moments where Avengers. I think you have that tune that the main theme, Avengers
Yeah.
theme
Yeah.
that was played when they're charging, and
Right.
also in commercials. And I think that would be maybe the only one, but I don't know if it would be how much it would stand the test of time. Right? Like Star Wars, you have its
Yep.
main motif, right?
Yep.
Understand that. Indiana Jones. A lot of these are like a lot of these that we're thinking. I'm thinking of Steven Spielberg
Seems yeah.
movies. Oh man, I forget the composer that Hans
Hans
Zimmer,
Zimmer. Hans Zimmer.
right?
Yeah. Hans Zimmer did a
Yeah,
lot of
Hans
like
Zimmer.
the themes
Yeah,
for like the Chris Nolan.
yeah,
So
exactly.
like yeah, some of his work in like Inception and Interstellar is really good. Like
Yeah,
very very
exactly.
like very very like good pieces of music. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think if you enjoy movies. Hayao Miyazaki, Joe Hisashi's, a lot of
Oh
his
yeah. Okay.
become, if you're tuned to that scene, I
Yep.
think a lot of the compositions also, pretty memorable, at least for people who follow that, right? They can, kind of recall or know it, like Spirited Away,
Yep.
or Howl's Moving Castle. Those are also very prominent, things that people remember, or music compositions that people remember. But I agree. Like today, I don't know if there's anything that really stands out. And all I can think of really is the Avengers. Like if you hear it, you can be able to
You
connect
could
it.
yeah.
Can people recall it? Is yeah, I think that at least first maybe few notes.
Yeah.
but I don't know if that how much of that'll stand the test of time. But I think that's yeah, that's at least the most modern example I would have to see. I have to maybe recall other movies because usually these are attached to like epics, right, or something, and really grand moments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, we going back to the film. Um, so the fight scenes were really well done. I think those are like my I guess my favorites. In terms of like what I've seen. I remember like the scenes where like um, uh, let's see, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Chow Yun Fat and John Zi, like they were like fighting in the bamboo, like they went into the bamboo, and I remember like
So,
I think I've seen this film before, or I've seen clips of it, and I do remember that scene in particular when they're like traveling through like the forest of bamboos,
yeah,
and they're trying to like they're fighting and whatnot, and it's like I don't know. I had the whole concept like so when I first saw like the style like they're like basically floating
yeah,
in the
the wire
air,
fighting. Yeah,
yeah. So I remember like I knew that this movie was gonna have it because I remember that scene in particular. But like I just remember the first time I saw it, like in the, I think it was when the thief was like when she like went to steal the sword for the first time.
oh yeah,
And then Michelle Yeoh's character like follows and tries to like and they do the first fight sequence. Um, I just like I was like I don't know. I just thought it was pretty entertaining, pretty funny. Like I remember just laughing. I just thought it was. I felt it to me it felt kind of out of place, but then I was like, okay, well, okay, if I just accept that this is like more of a like it took me some time like after that like I guess it kind of took me out of like reality, but then I realized that this it wasn't necessarily like you know full on reality. There was something fantasy elements to
it's
it.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. This is like what was it, a wuxia movie, right? So
yeah.
it has martial arts, right, and fantasy and chi, right? And you see that,
Yes.
and
Yes. Yeah.
and I think it's a prominent portion, and you have to kind of go in knowing that this is kind of its own genre,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
No, I agree. I agree. Like yeah, you but yeah, like I just remember like being amused for the first time, and then there was also the scene. So there was a comedic relief character, like a comedy relief character, right?
Oh, the guard.
The guard, yeah. So when I first saw the guard, I was like, wait, okay, so how is this? There's like this guy's getting a lot of screen time. I was like, okay, is
He
this
was a
good?
lot more prominent than I thought.
Yeah, there was a lot more like so I was just like, okay, so is there something that's going to happen with this dude? And like there was a little subplot with the police officer, and his daughter trying to exact revenge on the Jade Fox,
Yeah,
and then failing the police officer father, he died doing so, and the Jade Fox was able to escape. And then after that, there was like maybe just one more scene where the guard was like guarding the house with the daughter. And then after that, like the daughter wasn't there anymore, and it was just the guard. The guard just followed them on their journey to the west,
yeah.
which was like, and then he brought the sword back. I guess that was his like, you know,
This-
his
yeah.
duty. But it was like I don't know how. I mean, okay, so like he's definitely there for the like. I do appreciate the comedy relief. Like he was pretty funny when I remember the first fight scene when he's like using the little like um I don't even know what the weapon, but it's very like nunchucks, but like one end of the stick is
Oh,
longer.
the
So
staff with
the stuff
the
with the
chain at the
yeah with the
yeah,
chain and the other part little smaller staff.
yeah.
Um, so I just
The
remember
focus.
like him fighting the thief for the first time, and then she was just like more or less like toying around with him. He's like trying to attack, and then every time he would just hit himself like multiple times. um,
Yeah,
so I was like, oh man, this character's kind of like I find this character amusing, but I also felt like there wasn't really much like after the halfway through the movie, he didn't really do too much. He was just kind of like there. And I'm not sure if like if he did have a more prominent role, I'm not sure like what could have been done to like increase his like um his subplot or whatnot. But um I guess like he did help contribute to the. I mean, he brought the sword. He eventually brought the sword back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, he didn't have much to play in the later half of the movie,
yeah,
right? But to be fair, the later half of the movie also really just focused on Jen's character, like her how she was going through, right?
yeah,
But yeah, he only appeared at the end to help, I think that's also when the other two characters, Mubai and Julian, when they started reappearing after Jen's flashback. That's when he started kind of on the journey. But he played a very minor role at the second half of the movie.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think he was right. He's more more comic relief, and then he introduced the whole kind of sub arc with the police inspector, the
Mm-hmm.
daughter, and then having that be able to link that confrontation in between Jade Fox and Mubai, as well as having Jade Fox kind of recognize um, Jen's kind of mastery of the martial arts. But yeah, he doesn't really play much of a
Yeah,
role after. You're right, just a comic relief.
yeah. Like, I wonder if like, do you think he was like, let's say like he was just taken out of the movie? Do you think that would have detracted?
Um,
Like, let's
no,
say the whole
I
let's say the whole subplot with the police officer was like not even in the movie. Do you think that would have detracted the movie?
um, I th- well, you would then have to, I think, replace that portion with something, right? Because the whole subplot of the police was to show the fight between Jen and Mubai, like to have them confront each other,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's during that fight when the Jade Fox recognizes, oh, Jen is better than me, right?
okay,
Because she's like, oh, you fight. So you would have to replace that fight, show something else, to show a different confrontation at that point. But I
uh,
kind of agree because um, the whole thing with the police inspector, like you see it, you think it's another prominent arc, and then the father dies, but we don't see the daughter get any closure, especially after we have spent some time with it, right?
mm-hmm.
The whole, I think you're right that that whole portion of the film, could have been maybe excised, um, but then you would have to show another fight or show another way to have these three characters, Mubai, Jade Fox, and Jen, kind of all be in one place, right?
Yeah,
And in order for it to make sense, right? Um, so I think it could be excised, but then you would have to replace it, with some kind of interaction between those three instead, right? I think they try to maybe do it organically, right? Have this kind of subplot, right? You have this police inspector family who's trying to go after a criminal,
mm-hmm.
right? And then he's been posting posters everywhere, saying it. Everyone's like who's hunting this guy down? He's not revealing that he's a police officer, right? So he goes out and reveals that he's looking for Jade Fox. The Jade Fox is like doesn't like that she's being exposed in this area, so
Mm-hmm.
she goes out to get the police inspector, right? And Mubai, right? He's saying, oh, who is he's also interested in this investigation, right? He asked Shulen, do you know who's posting? He's like, no, not really, but it's in the area.
Yeah,
But now he's inside town, right? So he comes in like last minute to save, to help, give a helping hand. So this is when all three of those characters are, in that area and have, confronted each other, all because the police inspector was looking for Jade Fox. Jade Fox wanted to take out and sent the challenge to this police inspector to meet her.
mm-hmm.
So now all the pieces are set, right? And because of that, Mubai gets to see Jen's fighting character, right? Like gets to see how how trained she is,
Yeah,
and that's why
yeah,
he wants to pick her as a disciple. And the Jade Fox gets to see how Jen is pretty masterful and starts to like be jealous of her, and that's what happens in the movie that kind of plays why she wants to they're breaking apart from Jen and Jade Fox as well as Jade Fox in the end wanted to wanting to take her away and maybe learn more, or and then when she can't do that, willing to kill
yeah,
Jen. So I think that portion, um, maybe could have been worked in a different version, but I think it kind of works. It still works, in terms of trying to have an organic meetup of these three main characters. But it's kind of unfortunate that the guardman, he kind of he plays a role, but then it kind of drops away, as well as the daughter, right? She wants to avenge her mother, wants to avenge her father, but she doesn't have any closure. I mean, yes, the Jade Fox finally dies, right? But she died at the hand of Mubai. But the daughter really doesn't have that sense of closure, or doesn't know. We don't see any her kind of reaction of finally getting that closure because
Hmm.
both her parents are dead now because of this one assassin.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I agree. Like actually, it's that sort of subplot led to the bigger plot, if you will, for
Yeah,
like the remainder of the movie. Um, I really want to talk more about the Jade Fox a little bit. So I feel like the Jade Fox's character is very. So from what I understand, what I remember, if I remember correctly, is that the Jade Fox wanted to learn from um, the mountain. I forget what the mountain's called. Wudan Mountain.
we down. Yeah,
Wudan,
we down.
yeah. So she wanted to learn like the martial arts from Wudan Mountain, right? But she was rejected because she was a woman. That was I believe that was the main reason.
Right.
And then so she took her revenge by killing the master with poison. And I think um, there's this whole I think there's this whole thematic significance of poison in the movie. Um, as I see in this Wikipedia page. Nothing that I came up with, nothing that I really noticed, but I think there was like this whole like part of the Wikipedia page that says something along the lines of um, like, wait, where is it? Oh yeah, themes and interpretations. Like there's a whole paragraph about poison, and it says something about the fact that poison in the world of martial arts, poison is considered the act of one who is too cowardly and dishonorable to fight. And so the only person who does this is Jade Fox.
Right. It's kind of underhanded.
But it's more of a weapon because she's on a quest for like vengeance, and she like wants to do this to kill the master who didn't want to teach her. And so like this whole plot, this whole movie is really about. There is a lot of what you mentioned very early, like this whole like patriarchal society. There's not and where like females don't really the females are trying to it's a lot it's a big movie about like the just female like just women in general and like their sort
Yeah.
of like roles perceived within this patriarchal society. And so like you can see that this sort of like mentality or sort of like this sort of like this patriarchal society is sort of like was the precursor to this whole entire film, the whole entire plot, and like why these like you see that the journey of these women, not only like Jade Fox's like sort of like rejection from the martial arts, and then her now her quest for vengeance to poison the master, and then it creates the whole subplot um, with Li Mubai trying to exact revenge on her to like for vengeance of his master, right? Because that was his master who died. But also just like um, Zhang Ziyi's like character as she like is getting married off but doesn't want to be married off. She feels very like against the idea because she wants to be free. She wants to learn the martial arts, but she can't because like she's a woman. But then there's an opportunity for her to learn because like Limu Bai is actually like thinks that she has like the potential to like learn
Yeah.
from him and doesn't care if like she's like wants to kill him or whatever. But and so you see that you kind of like see this like shift throughout this movie of this tone where like uh what once was like very strict like only men can learn these martial arts is like maybe like you see a perspective like maybe the woman could actually do that too, and you can clearly see that the women are very capable of because they're very strong females in this movie. They're like very good at
Yeah.
fighting and they can like
Right.
you know basically like there was the whole scene where Jen was basically just took down a whole restaurant full of people. And that was actually a
Yeah.
really funny scene. Like, I just thought that was hilarious because she like at the very end, I just remember like she went back to the top and like the whole restaurant was just like destroyed, and then like there's like the second floor just collapses
The
as like
bridge. Right.
it's like oh yep it's done curtain drawn sort of a thing. Um, I thought that was a hilarious scene. And that was so well done. Like I was like it was meant to be comedic, right? Like
Right.
those like I know the antagonist like those people who are like trying to like rile her up. Those are just clearly like buffoons or whatever. But like I just thought like those scenes are very like um they just indicate that like just because she's like a woman doesn't mean that she's not capable of like mastering this art. She's very capable of doing so, and so
Right.
like um, I guess it also sort of brings to like kind of also segues to the very end of the film where she like leaps off the mountain. I think that's also a very I think symbolic representation of like oh you know she just wants to be like free like she just
Yeah.
doesn't want to be like um sort of um what's the word uh
Strange.
she doesn't want to be like um uh chained down. I guess I don't know maybe chained down is the wrong wrong word or phrase but like she doesn't want to be like stuck in like these the like society's standards right she wants to be like her own person and that's like very much evident by like her whole like flashback in the desert where she kind of just like went on this went to go sort of had this like fling with a with a dark cloud if you yeah um, because she just saw adventure in that like it was just very different from her lifestyle and she wanted to be free so like um, yeah it was basically like a message saying that like you know you can't you know chain me down I will jump off this mountain and I will be like my own person um,
She's trying to have her wish granted, right? Because now she's, I think the whole scene, um, not to take away from the discussion, but the whole scene, the symbolic, yeah, she's trying to be free and whatnot, right?
mm,
But there was the whole thing where Dark Cloud was telling her about the story, the legend, right? Where the man, made a wish and jumped off, so she wants to do the same thing, right? And after doing this whole thing of being involved with Jade Fox and dying and whatnot. She wants to be, I think the legend was that he jumps off and he can live because he's pure of heart, and she wants to do the same thing, right? If she because Mubai kind of first says, oh, you're not corrupted, but then he says, oh, maybe you are, right? And now she
mm,
after this whole death and trying to resolve it, she wants to kind of prove herself or wants to see whether or not if she herself is corrupted or not, and jumps off and wants to fulfill her wish of being able to be in love with this guy in the desert.
mm.
I think that's it's kind of like an added thing, but I think you're right. It's kind of like she wants to be free, wants to that's why she jumps and flies right into the clouds and unrestrained, obviously not chained down by the
Were
gender role
they
of
the
society.
dark clouds? Okay, I'm sorry. Nah, they looked pretty white to me. But yeah, no, yep, yep, totally agree with that. Um, there's something else that I was reading from the Wikipedia page about the whole title, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Um, there was like this whole like apparently it's a literal translation of this idiom, which I cannot read, but I know there's Hu and Long, which is like tiger and dragon in Mandarin. But basically, what it means, according to the article, is that it describes a place or situation that is full of unnoticed masters, which I mean you can kind of see in this film. There's some people who really want to become masters, and for because of some very like because of this sort of like oh no you can't because of your gender, you, you they don't officially become masters,
Right.
but also apparently in the dubbed version, in the English version, the Jen and Dark Cloud, their names actually translate more to dragon and tiger. So
Really?
Jen's character is Yu Jia Long, which is like I think like Long is like the dragon part, and then Dark Clouds in the dub version of is a Luo Xiao Hu or something like that. Um,
Cool.
and Hu is like tiger. So
Yeah.
like the two of the prominent characters in the second half of the film, they are like referred to. There's like those names are in the title, right? Um, so yeah, so like it's the title itself is like also very like symbolic of like what the movie really means.
Yeah, but I think it's more in tune to a Chinese audience, right? They would
Yeah,
have to they
yeah,
would be able to understand,
mm-hmm.
coming in if you don't speak Chinese or don't understand that context, right? It's just kind of another Asian Chinese imagery, right? Tigers and dragons, and the whole Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is kind of like a mythical kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
But it probably, yeah, the title itself, has probably more meaning, if you understood and spoke Chinese, can relate to.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things that like I guess I never really like. Um, a lot of themes or something are just like tidbits that I didn't realize from watching um, until I like kind of read more on this Wikipedia article. But yeah, like this I just it would have been like so for the end of the movie, like I was kind of like I didn't think that the movie was gonna end tragically. Um, at least for like Limo Bai. Um, I actually thought that they were going to reach the mountain, and then he was going to like teach her like to some degree, and then they were going to have like a fight with the Jade Fox, and then she was going to like choose a side, probably to eradicate the Jade Fox. I thought she was going to be the one to do it, um, but I think the ending is. I think that would have been like it would have been nice to see that just because it would have been like it would have broken the cycle of like oh only like it would have come full circle, right? Because the Jade Fox wanted to learn, but she was a woman. But now it's like um, Jen, who is a woman, is now learning officially, right? Like, and then but
Right.
like she dies because of her like, or Jade Fox dies because of her dies at the hands of Jen because of like she was able to like set aside like she didn't become embroiled or poisoned by this quest for vengeance. Um,
Yeah.
so it would have been very like poetic in a sense. But I think this ending was I do like that she kind of just jumped off. She's like, "F it, you want me? I don't want any of this anymore.
Oh, well, yeah.
I'm my own, I'm my own character, unhinged, free."
Yeah, I think there's definitely a reason why, right? Why Mubai dies, right? It kind of shows the kind of missed opportunity between Mubai and Juliet, right? Because they were always kind of flirting, but they never really cemented their relationship. They always kept each other at a distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now that this whole fighting, they fought Jade Fox, and it's kind of this whole martial arts world. It kind of shows that they missed their opportunity, right? They should have grabbed it when they were younger, when their feelings were stronger. And I think that kind of sends that message that take it what you can, don't be kind of bound by these kind of societal roles, these different gender ideas,
Mm-hmm.
because she kisses him at the end, right? And you see that kind of passion and desperateness, right? The one last act of intimacy between these two that they couldn't really enjoy
Mm-hmm.
while they're alive. Mubai kind of tries to advance it, right? Throughout the movie, that's his whole goal, right? Is to
Yeah.
be with Julia, and they're still dancing around, but he takes the first step, right? In the beginning of the movie, he ends his training, comes down from the mountain, and he comes to see her, right? It's kind of
Yep.
implied that he stopped his training to see her. He goes to Peking, right? Not because of the sword, but it's also to see her, right? So he's trying to advance it, right? But they're still dancing around. They're still too scared around,
Yep.
right? And they travel together, right? And very at the last moment, right, when he's about to die, he doesn't want to have this, or he doesn't want to have the regret. Instead of going to enlightenment, he says, I'll go back to my earthly desire, and wants to tell her that he loves her, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of this kind of missed opportunity. I think it's this theme of it kind of shows that how what they're trying to do, like this whole like idea of memory of to the old husband, this kind of Confucian idea maybe isn't the way to go, right? And then Julian kind of tells Jen, tells Jen, oh, I want you to be happy. Whatever you do with your life, pursue it. That you want to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, that's why, Bride Eye is just to show kind of that theme. There's just a whole the Confucian value, the duty to your brother. Maybe you should be more attuned to what you want in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with Jen jumping off and whatnot, dying, I think it kind of eradicates the whole martial lineage, right? Because you have, Chow Yun Fat, Mubai's character, fight Jade Fox, who also kind of learned from that kind of, learn from the scroll. So they know that martial lineage, that they fight each other, they kill each other off. Jen is the last kind of remaining person because she learned from Jade Fox, the scroll, right? And then she also read the scroll and was able to, become a master herself. Now the whole lineage is dead because Mubai earlier in the film was saying how the world of this kung fu and this, there's always, bathed in bloodshed. It's always a cycle, right? If he comes back, he's trying to get out of it. He comes back. Now the whole line is, eradicated. I don't know if there's any, special meaning to that with these three people because obviously one is still there and the lineage is probably still at the school. But at least these three prominent people who, were with the master or has the master's teachings are all gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the teaching is maybe not as ideal, right? Because the master, right, refused Jade Fox, um, teaching her because she's a woman, right? But
Yeah.
also he slept with her, right? Kind of, this kind of thing, like, oh, he took advantage of her in that way. Um,
Wait, who
because
slept with?
that's what
Wait, they slept with. Who
the
slept with?
master,
The master slept with
Jade
Jade
Fox,
Fox.
right? That's why Jade Fox was saying, oh, he would sleep with me, but he would not teach me, right?
Oh, okay, I do remember that. Okay,
So
never mind.
so
Okay, yeah.
so so this is kind of like impure, right? Like oh, this guy would take advantage of this. Well, maybe it's not take advantage. It was a maybe it was a um, they both entered the relationship, but still
Mm-hmm.
he would sleep with her, but he would not teach her. Would not there's I don't know if there's any love in there in that relationship. Nothing pure, right? It seemed like it was an unpure relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the start. And then even Mumbai, right? He goes away off into the mountain, but he realizes like this, this teaching, this kind of way of life, is not, does not make him happy, right? He's not able to be with Julianne, and he wants to be with her, right? So that's why he stops his training and try to retire
Mm-hmm.
from all this life. But then his duty to his old master requires that he kill Jade Fox, right? And it goes wraps back out. So this whole kind of teaching also maybe is not as pure in this kind of sense.
Yeah. Mm. Interesting. Okay.
So there's a lot of, I think, different complexity, especially at the end. It kind of ties it together, right? Like it ends the relationships. It kind of shows different themes of what is good and what is right,
Mm.
and what you should pursue, and even happiness. It's kind of very hard to attain. And Jen just offs herself by jumping off a mountain.
Yeah.
um,
I know it's pretty
and
interesting
then
because what's it like Shulian, like she was like telling Jen to be like, oh, you should go be with don't marry someone you don't love. Go be with Dark Cloud. And she follows that advice. She goes and meets him, and then yeah, like I guess it kind of comes full circle with his wish. He's like, oh yeah, like jump off the mountain, and then your wish will come true. And she was like, all right,
all
I'll
right,
jump
I'll
off
do
this
that.
mountain, and our wish will come true. His wish was to be
Be
with
with
her
her
in
in
the
the desert.
deserts.
Yeah,
Okay, so like it could still happen, right?
surprise that fall.
It's like
They show that
interpretation.
he can fly.
She can fly. I mean, hey, she knows the martial. She knows those martial arts, right? So she
Okay.
jumps off. She jumps off the mountain and then lands in the desert. And he follows, goes back in the desert. They meet up, and then they're together. Happy ending. But like I said, it's up to interpretation.
Okay.
Um, which I really do like about I do really like those films that have those ambiguous interpretations, like ambiguous endings to the point where you can have multiple interpretations, and it's like sort of like your perception of like what you think happens.
Yeah.
Um, and there's like I don't think there's any wrong answer to that. It's just a matter of like it just kind of like certifies how like the complexities and the nuances of this movie, and like
Mhm.
the different themes it tells, and like how the sort of message you think it delivers. Um, yeah. So that's why I do. That's why I really like the ending. Um, it's a very nice ending, in my opinion. Um, Another fun fact of this film that I also noticed slash read up on was that the four main characters, so Mubai, Shulan, Jen, and Dark Cloud, they were um, all of their Chinese had different accents, which is pretty interesting because so Mubai's character, like his actor, like Chow Yun Fat, he's Cantonese, like he's from Hong Kong,
Yeah,
so he's like a speaking Mandarin with like a little bit like Cantonese accent, and then of course like Michelle Yeoh, she's born in I think she's born and raised in Malaysia.
yeah, Malaysia.
So like apparently her Chinese has like a Malaysian accent. And then Jen's actress John Ziyi, she's Beijing. She's like a Beijing accent. And then Dark Cloud is actor Chan Chung. He is Taiwanese, so he's a Taiwanese accent. And it was very interesting to like listen in on that and be like, oh okay, because I could like I don't know if I could tell like per se like what the exact accents were, but I knew that there was like I was listening in on like the Chinese, and I was like, there's something going on. Like they're not all from the same place. Um, I think it was more. I think it was more. Yeah, it was less like I knew that for like Michelle Yeoh. So I think to me the most prominently different one was I think Michelle Yeoh's. Her Chinese was like to me was if it sounded the most um different from what I'm used to, at least in terms of like Beijing accent wise. But it was yeah, that was a little fun fact. Apparently, it was like
Did that take away the film when you were watching it? For me, I didn't notice it. Well, I would say I don't.
it didn't take away. It was something that like I was like because like I mean the more they speak, the more I get used to, and it's like it kind of gets um sort of in like it's something that's like you don't really like unless you kind of just like you listen to it, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a bit of a like a nuance there, and then like you just accept it and move forward. Otherwise, you just it always distracting, and you just can't really appreciate the bigger parts of the film. But like, um, yeah, I just remember I read that like apparently since they all have different accents, they tried to like um when they were filming, they tried to like normalize it to make sure that they were all speaking like with them. They're all their accents were like kind of like more similar to each other, like the same. So they had to do like multiple takes just to like get the accent of the Chinese right, or the Mandarin right.
That's interesting.
So it was it's fairly interesting.
So with this being a martial arts film, I want to ask, what was your favorite fight scene, or what fight scene stood out to you the most?
What was my favorite fight scene?
Yeah,
Okay, so I have to like go through and remember which one. Okay, so there was the first fight with between Jen and Shulian. And then there was the fight scene between Jen and the guard. And then there was the fight scene between the guard, the police officer, his daughter, and Jade Fox, and then it kind of transitioned to a fight scene between Mubai and Jen.
yeah,
And then do you count the fight scene? Wait, there was like a flashback,
yeah.
and
The
then
flashback.
do you count the
Except,
fights?
kind of right. They kind of do a tussle right
They were like a
between
tussle.
Jen.
Yeah, it was like a more of a
It wasn't. Yeah.
sexual tension tussle. But yeah, no. So I guess you can maybe count that. I don't know. Well, that one wouldn't be my favorite anyway. But and then there was another fight scene. There was a fight scene in the restaurant between Jen and like all the other goos, and then there was the fight scene between Mubai and Jen on the bamboo forest,
Mhm.
and then there was the
Did you say the
last
one between?
last fight between Mubai and Jade Fox, right?
Mm, kind of right. It's not much of
Yeah,
a
it's not
fight,
much of a fight. It's just more like a slurry of a move
reflecting all the
deflecting all the
needles.
needles. Yeah. Wait, are there any ones I'm missing?
I don't think so.
Wait, so I forgot. There's a second fight between Jen and Shulian.
Oh, the
Yeah, with
compound
like
one.
when she's like using all these weapons and he keeps cutting them
Yeah.
in half. I was like, dang. Yeah. I mean, it looked like Shulian was like the better fighter, but like her weapons were just getting cut off one after another.
Well, with that scene, right, the sword, right, the Green Destiny sword is supposed to be like a really powerful weapon that can cut through anything, right?
Yeah.
And then Julian is supposed to be, this masterful fighter who knows how to fight, but is using weapons again. So you see the weapons getting cut down every
Yeah.
time, right? The blades being and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
um, but the master, the swordsman, the woman in this case, was able to wield her weapon really well still. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the weapon really helped, right? Otherwise, I think there were points where Julianne was able to bested her, but
Yeah.
the weapon's kind of broken in her hands, so she can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's like.
I just there's
But yeah,
this.
you listed,
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was gonna say you listed them. So which one is your
Oh, I
favorite?
was
But if you have anything else you want to add,
before I choose my favorite, there was the scene. I remember like halfway between that fight scene, she was like trying to wield this hammer weapon, and she's like,
oh
she's like,
yeah,
and then she comes back. I was like, I just love these like little clips of comedy and these fight scenes. It's hilarious. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Okay, so I guess the one that I just like probably enjoyed watching the most because I actually really do like action comedy, um, like comedic action.
Mhm.
So I was gonna say like the one I feel like I enjoyed watching the most was probably the one in the restaurant when she was like basically
Oh yeah.
destroying the entire restaurant and then like she's like goes in the end she does this little speech the end finale and then the whole like second floor collapses. Like I just thought that was like so funny. Yeah, that was a really good. Um, Definitely in terms of entertainment factor, I really enjoyed it. But I guess if you consider like the quality, um, oh yeah, I guess there was another fight between a chase between Mubai and Jen. When she was trying to like I think return the sword. Yeah, she was trying to return the
Oh
sword,
yeah.
and
When she
then
was trying to return and
she
get
like
the sword,
always like she was kept on like was trying to escape, but then Mubai was always like one step ahead of her.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um. Oh man, I don't know. That's a really good. Like, there's so many good ones. I just
There
like them
were a
for
lot.
different. Like some of them for different. I really like the one where they're like in the bamboo forest. Like I felt like that was a really like cool sequence.
It's a very unique sequence, right? Fighting
Yeah,
in the trees,
guarding
and
the trees and trying to balance.
everything was kind of balanced and
Yeah,
trying to go through the trees were going up and down. The environment was kind of strange. It's a very different environment to fighting because usually the fighting really like stays in place.
right.
Fighting the trees, they were just kind of like going back and forth with the swords and whatnot, trying to counter, and it was very different going through the trees. So that was a very unique fight, and I think very memorable, especially during one of the cinematography. Right, you have this scenes you're trying to go and try to capture this these two passing by each other and their faces when they're going by and how they're interacting. So it was a very unique and different fight. I can see that. That's pretty memorable.
Yeah, I yeah. In terms of like, I guess that was more of like maybe not as much into the fighting, but more so just like the scenery and the whole like the setting itself was very unique. But maybe if you boil down to like the actual fighting, um, I also think that the whole like the second fight between Shulian and Jen was also very good because there was like a whole like display of like all these different type of weapons. So it wasn't just like the sword;
Yeah.
it was like the sword, then the spear, then the double hooked sword, and then like this like big axe that she couldn't wield, and then the big rod that got cut in. I don't know. I thought that was like all those different displays of like weaponry was like really cool to see.
Mhm.
Um, and like pretty like yeah, like there's like the whole. I just remember there's the with the double hooked sword, like she like attached the two swords together and was like using it like to go around. I guess like a ranged
Yeah,
weapon. That was really cool. It was like very diverse.
right.
So I guess in terms of like maybe in terms of just like the fighting itself, that would probably be my like if we just focus on the fighting itself.
Hmm.
Um, I think that would probably be my favorite.
No, I think that for me, it's the same. I really like that fight because, as you said, it was all these diverse weapons. It kind of shows all this mastery, and it's just so I think it's just the diversity of it all, just kind of really stuck out to me. You see this fight scene play out between these two women. Um, it was really great and really enjoyable performance, great choreography. So I think that would also be at least maybe listed as one of my favorite ones. Another one I think that stood out to me was the first fight right between Julian and Jen, right? Just when she was trying to capture her. Just watching this, I think it was just like it was the first real fight, and just to see it was very entertaining for me. Just to see all the action happen, and that really stood out to me. Just how these two people are going at each other and just the complexity of how they're going about it and fighting. That kind of stuck out to me. So I really like the first fight. That really made a good impression on me. Just like, oh, the fight scenes of this movie are going to be good because this first fight was really good, well choreographed, shot really well. The music was done well, so it got me excited for the rest of the film. So the first fight scene between the two also kind of was one of my favorite fight scenes as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, um, but yeah, I really like yeah, each fight scene had its own unique character to it, right? Again, it's like a musical, right? These fight scenes are there to as a musical number, progress the plot, but also show the different characters and the motivations, and when they can't resolve it, they fight. It's kind of like a burst of emotion. The fight scene between with a police inspector, right? That was pretty interesting. You got
Yep.
the guardman, she tries
Oh
to
yeah, he's
go
using
in.
him to like I said, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that,
That's
that was
funny.
a very interesting. That was very unique. He's being used as a proxy and being fighting with it.
Yeah,
The beginning of the fight was kind of interesting because he was like tied to the tree,
yeah.
right? He goes in and he gets tied to the tree. I was like, oh, well, like did they
But
tie him down or
but like he was didn't he tie himself? Was he like did he tie himself down or
I don't know. That's why I was kind of confused because he was tied down. I think I don't know who he ran out and he
he
fell
go
back.
yeah
Oh,
yeah.
what?
That's
And then
funny.
he he frees
Comedic relief
himself. But
at its
yeah,
finest.
exactly, comedic relief. Um, but it ended pretty brutally with the whole with this own weapon being stuck in his head. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like that was brutal and short. But that was an interesting fight and very good dynamic there. They these four people trying to tangle and fight with each other. Kind of exciting. Um, but yeah, and then you kind of see yeah when you talked about the bamboo fight, in the trees and how that was different itself. And then I also agree with when you said that the whole fight in the tea house, you kind of see all these masters fighting, and she just completely dominates. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
also kind of adds to the her own wish, right? Because in the beginning of the movie, she kind of said, "Oh, I want to be like you," to Xu Yan. She wants to be free, and she wants to be a warrior and be an adventurer. And now she gets to live that life, right? She gets to be free and adventuring, and she gets
Yeah.
to fight, right? She
Yeah.
gets to finally have her way. So that's what that fight kind of represented, and I thought that was again as it was a very good fight to show that she can do it. She gets tired, right? But again, she shows that she's mastery of it. But I think it kind of goes along that it was her weapon that she was able to wield the weapon. The weapon greatly helped
Yeah.
um, her be able to fight, and then you kind of see it when she fights Mubai, and Mubai is like, oh, I want you to be a student. And she tried to, she almost kind of bested him, but then, we kind of see, she says to him, oh, if you, take my sword in 3 moves, I'll be your student. And he takes it in one, right? So that was, you kind of see how he's, still the top master.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fight scenes here are, I think we said it all, repeatedly, just, very good, and just, something that you don't really, we don't see it really often anymore, at least in the Western movies, where everything's cut and whatnot. But here, it's like a lot of grandiose. It's well, very flashy, right? Because usually in movies nowadays, I think they become more practical, right? More brutal. fights, right? You got a lot of very and that's kind of its own action, right? You want kind of realism, right? You go to the martial arts that police and military learns to take down and kill, right? And it's kind of more realistic, you got the Brazilian jiu-jitsu or MMA and all that, right? And it's brutal, it's efficient, it can be really short as well.
Hmm.
But with these films, actually this film, it's all flashy and performance, kind of almost kind of like a dance, right?
Yep.
It's choreographed, and that's what I prefer. Right? I like these martial arts, like this wushu and um, um, yeah, I like this kind of wushu kind of thing. There's different Chinese martial arts, maybe not the most practical, but also it's the most enjoyable form to watch. Right? It takes a while. It's kind of like a dance number watching it, and it's not too short. It doesn't end immediately. You enjoy the action that's going on. And, yeah, there's brutal moments, but it's not like it's like kill and maim like current action.
Yeah.
It's more like flashy and shows, and that's why I really, really enjoy those types of fights. I really enjoy Chinese martial arts kind of style.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean it's a different fighting style, and I think maybe not as practical as today, but definitely you know just nice to watch. I think that's the difference between like movies, real life, right? Like, a lot of realism and whatnot.
Yeah.
They want to do try to make it real and try to finish the fight as soon as they can and be really brutal and blood, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes in these Chinese fights, all martial arts is more like um, um, you know again flashy and performance driven and just pleasing to the eye. So
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, that's why people watch like professional wrestling, right? Because it's all it's choreographed. I mean, like it's stunts, live stunts, but like they're not trying to like beat each other up, you know, too badly, right? It's supposed to just look like they're beating each other up. Um, but yeah, how would you rate this movie?
ooh, I really like this movie. Um,
Ooh, are we gonna see it?
so
Are we gonna see a 10?
yeah, I think I might give this movie a 10.
Oh, you're gonna give this movie a
Uh,
10?
I think I might because
All right.
um, I really love the martial arts. The martial arts really stood out to me. And I say that's my own love of the genre speaking to it, right? Because I really that really stood out, and I enjoyed it watching the fight, and each fight made sense, and that's why it stood out to me. Like each fight was different, each fight was unique. No fight was kind of like the same old. Each fight, each character that went into the fight had their own ability to it. What's interesting with the fights also was that I think when the women were fighting, it was more grounded in reality, like everything they're all on the ground and whatnot. But when you well, Jen was characters kind of flew around, but then you had Mubai, who's when he fights, he's the male character, and he kind of has this kind of fantastical element. He can fly and jump, and you have a lot of wire fighting. And wire fighting itself is very interesting. You have to do it well, and you have to shoot it well. And I thought that they did it really well. Otherwise, it can look really comical. But I think it kind of made sense in this world. So the fight scenes really stood out to me, and I really like the progression of the story as well. Between the two characters, right, Mubai and Julian, their relationship and how they, were trying to kind of, they were dancing around each other but never really cementing it. I like how that relationship progressed and how they were trying to, close in. And you kind of see Mubai at the beginning. He really is trying to get together with her, but it doesn't really, work out. And then with Jen's character, like, her character arc was really the main focus of the film, and I liked how it went. How we are introduced to her. She's someone who wants freedom, right? And we can see how she kind of becomes the thief, tries to have fun, steals the sword, wants to play with it. Returns it after having guilt, but then steals again to go on the adventure. We have her own flashback, which was interesting. To delve into the whole movie, right in the middle of the movie, we see how her relationship, like, kind of explains her character, right? How she wants to be free, and how this kind of adventurism was instilled to her,
Yep.
and it introduces us also to Dark Cloud, right? How this gentleman, or not gentleman, this nomad, right? He kind of acts like a gentleman, right? He acts in an honorable way. He could have been like a regular barbarian, goes
Mm-hmm.
down and takes her by force, and kind of have a kind of a weird Stockholm. It kind of is Stockholm syndrome still, but still like you know but in the it could have been like, oh, he captures her and romanticizes her, in a brutal, but maybe like a bad boy image, but it doesn't, right? Yeah, the first fight that he's introduced, he seemed like don't hurt the women and children, right? Like when he raids the camp, and then he doesn't really capture her, right? She goes after him herself, right? So he doesn't do anything to keep her captive, right? It's on her own willing. And then when they go out into when she's still chasing him, he treats her with respect and whatnot. He tells her, "Oh, I'll sing, so you know where I am."
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want her to feel uncomfortable, so he's a really nice character, even though he's like abandoned and whatnot. He kind of portrays a character who is, ideal and kind of not, kind of like not scummy, I guess. I would say like he's just trying to respect her who she is, and I think that was great to handle that character instead of having it that he captures her and tries to woo her and then she falls for him. No, they kind of fall for each other right after spending time with each other. She's trying just to get her home, and he's just trying to be with her, and kind of plays with her in terms of just running away, not really doing anything else other than that. So I like flashback really worked well. And then coming back into reality, the ending fight scenes, that really kind of stuck it for me. So I just like how all the characters grew and their relationships, just the different perspectives that we got to see between the four main. Really, I think again, it's we say four main, but I really think it was really Jen's movie, right? She was the one that we really saw, go through and whatnot. She was introduced. We see Mumbai and Julian introduced, and Julian I think maybe might be the second most major character who we follow,
Yeah.
right? Her theme, and again, this movie's about the woman here.
Yeah.
We see Julian like trying to remember the memory of her of the her late husband and whatnot. So it kind of ties in with the whole gender society, gender roles. So um, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. The themes that was going, the fight scenes really stood out. So and I really like can't really say. I mean, could there be improvement? Yes, but I don't think it really took away too much from me, like the enjoyment, like the whole. I think we discussed earlier the whole guardsman, his role, and the whole police inspector that fight. But I think it added to, it was a subplot that kind of added to the plot of the movie. Maybe they could have resolved it a little bit differently, but that's just so minor. I would round up.
Yeah. So there's another question I have for so like Jen was like she's the thief, right? And like from the first time you saw the thief, you like already knew she was the thief because it was pretty obvious based on her, her eyes. I
Yeah,
mean, she covered the bottom half of her face, but like
yeah.
I don't know. Do you think it would have been better if she wore like a full face mask, like it covered her entire face, and the only thing that like include like I guess the only two things that you can see her eyes were through slits or something. Like you just like they wouldn't know who this character was until like that scene where she comes back and she like unmasks herself.
Um, Maybe, but I feel like this movie was wanted to step away from the whole um, you know, mystery kind of, theme element, right? I think it's more supposed to be dramatic irony where the audience gets to know who it is. And this
Yeah.
is a good way to show that this is a character who's covered, right? We're not, but maybe the rest of the public gets to know, but the characters, maybe do not know, but we know Julian kind of catches on. And the audience is supposed to catch on, right? I don't think it's supposed to, hide away. I think we really want us to know that, who this character is. And, it kind of, we don't want to know, we don't want to have a mystery. We want to know at the fact this is Jen taking the sword, right, and trying to live a different life. So I don't. I mean, maybe it could have worked that way. Maybe give it a little surprise, but I think it kind of. I think that the intent was not to have a mystery there, right? It was just to show that this was Jen's character who was stealing this, instead of
Okay.
introducing this other random character because we wanted to know. We just we follow the arc. We don't want to have this thing a mystery thing. It could have added a different element, but
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't have bothered me not having a covered face. I think it was purposeful that they did that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think if it would have been better. Like, I guess it would have been nice in terms of like, um, kind of like a bit of mystery to the sense that like in Shulian's perspective, she's also trying to figure out. She suspects and she observes. She's like, this person's really good at calligraphy. This person can catch teacups like at a whim, like. And then you as the audience are like, yeah, that's definitely her. But at the very beginning, you were like from the first time in late, like when you just show her like her face from like at least from Julian's perspective, like it's just like it's like you know immediately it's Jen, right?
Right.
And I kind of at least I mean this might be just more a preference than an actual like flaw, but like I just I guess I would have liked a little bit more of like a oh who is this, because that was a big part of the first half of the film was like the thief, catching the thief, returning the sword. Um, I guess it was kind of cool to see that. I didn't know that the Jade Fox was the her her
The
caretaker,
governess.
the governess.
Yeah.
Wait, with the governess?
Well, governess is the caretaker, right? That's what they call it. The
Oh,
nanny.
the nanny.
Same.
Yeah, yeah.
Same.
I actually didn't know that it was her because she looked with her hair down. It didn't. I didn't realize that it was the same person. I mean, I might have just been me. I don't know if you knew it was her from like the first time you saw Jade Fox, but
No, I watched the movie a long time ago, so I kind of knew.
oh, okay.
Um, I don't know. I don't remember my initial reaction, but watching it, this time, you kind of see the kind of like the elements where it's kind of like you show the governor or the Jade Fox is kind of when she's acting as nanny,
Yeah.
kind of suspicious, right? Like you show her like her reactions or how she's trying to egg on, or kind of guide
Mm-hmm.
Jen's character. So I think it's just kind of interesting, yeah, to show that element of it is the Jade Fox, is a woman and is was the nanny to Jen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a it's yeah. I think that's the main element because this is a character everyone was trying to go for at the beginning, at least at the beginning. Now we know who's hiding in the house.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that was a bit of a. I was like, oh, caretaker. That makes so much sense. That was a
Always
that was a
nice.
pleasant surprise. That was like, all right. Um, that's why I was like kind of asking because I enjoyed that little like. I mean, maybe it was to me it wasn't like maybe it was obvious to like other people, but to me I was like, oh, Jade Fox, because Jade Fox was like she was mentioned like, and Mubai was talking about her before, right? About like how
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were trying to catch the Jade Fox because to avenge the master.
right.
Um, so it's like intertwining these two stories now,
Yep.
or two plots. But yeah, in terms of my rating, hmm, I did enjoy this movie a lot. I think there are parts that could have, in terms of the plot, I don't know. There were parts of like I mean I did enjoy the moments with the guard in the beginning. He was like really funny, but I feel like he just took a like a back seat, and I'm not sure if there was like it was needed for him to like have that much of a role per se. But at the same time, I do understand that that was like the his fight with the police officer and the daughter, who also I feel like kind of just they just like I mean of course the police officer died, but the daughter kind of was like that's
Yeah.
it. There's no more. Yeah. Um, so either like maybe could reduce could take that out because it was not necessarily not necessary or like expanded a bit. Um, but yeah, I think I'd give this film like a nine.
No.
Yeah, because I did thoroughly enjoy it. I did really like it was very like to me the film was all really about the 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 the, the action scenes. The action scenes to me were like very prominent, very enjoyable to watch. Almost like a breath of fresh air in terms of like how compared to other more modern takes on
Yeah.
action scenes. Even though it's a fairly old film, it's 20 years old, but it was well choreographed, well executed. Um, But also, I really like the whole like I really like the ending of the film. And it's a ambiguity, and it's like sort of tie-ins with all this different themes regarding like um, basically just gender norms in this society. Um, I really did appreciate like how it sort of like intertwined all these different um, plots with regarding like the woman in this movie, and sort of
Hmm.
showed like, oh, like this all happened, and this all sort of happened, and like um, because of these like gender norms in this sort of like patriarchal society, um, very traditional society. So yeah, yeah, it's just really in terms of like overall execution, just really well done. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I
Enjoyed
can
it.
see why. Yeah, there are definitely some improvement to be done. Different depending on your perspective, but yeah,
Yeah,
really, really.
but yeah, I would for any of you who there's only like one other viewer right now, and I think it's one of my friends. But anyway, and yeah, I think he's already seen it too. But yeah, I would recommend this movie. Um, if you like action, if you like to see martial arts, this is your movie, like for sure.
This is the movie to go.
Um, if you if you like to see like sort of like how if you want to see basically like sort of like thematic importance, I guess. If you want to see a movie that's sort of how it handles like um sort of like the theme of like gender norms and some sort of like traditional society, this also is a very good movie. I'd recommend it. um if you want to see like yeah, I guess those are like the two biggest things reasons I
Yeah, it
recommend
takes
watching
place
it.
in a dynasty, imperial kind of China,
Mm-hmm.
old, right? So it's a period piece in that regard, right? A Chinese period piece,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese drama.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of speaks to oneself. And then again, as you said, really the highlight of this movie is just the martial arts. So if you really like martial arts movie,
Oh,
this is definitely a movie to watch. And you shouldn't miss.
yeah, for sure. I feel like if you really want to if you ever want to like direct an action or like if you want to become one of like film an action sequence, direct an action sequence, or just like learn from like or just like just enjoy action sequences in general, martial arts especially, like this is yeah up there. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
it's a like strongly recommend to watch it. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, um, any last thoughts, Austin, before we end?
No, not really. I think we covered a lot. So, great movie, and definitely recommend to watch it.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's it for this week. I will. We'll see you guys. We'll see everyone next week. Yeah, there will be another movie we'll watch. We'll discuss. Tune in next week during the weekend, sometime either Saturday or Sunday. Might be more. We'll see. So cool. All right. Well, with that note, I bid you guys adieu, or bid everyone ciao to do. Have a good day. Have a good rest of the weekend. See ya.
Bye.